Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside HR, the series of webinars from HRreview that explores the latest topics, issues, and trends affecting people practitioners across the UK and beyond. Today, we've partnered with our good friends at iCIMS to examine how to attract and hire top talent during a talent shortage. Many of us have experienced the effects of the ongoing talent shortage throughout much of the pandemic and since, with research showing that implementing digitalization practices improves hiring accuracy, efficiency, productivity, and overall effective streamlining of processes. Technology can intervene to improve the way employees work. Companies who do not digitalize run the risk of losing relevance in an increasingly internet and tech-heavy world. Over the next hour, we're going to discuss which automation tools can be used and implemented to help talent acquisition and HR leaders, how to create a winning talent attraction plan, and why it's important to personalize your candidate experience. And you can see that I'm joined by two experts who are going to help me do all of that. So let me introduce my guests to you this morning. First up, we have Kimberly Taylor. She's a chief evangelist at iCIMS. In her role, Kimberly focuses on understanding customer challenges and solving complex problems with innovative technology. She takes great pride in authentically telling customer stories and rallying those around her to bring their true selves to work. Kimberly, great to have you. As I understand, it's very early where you are this morning, so good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning from Los Angeles. Happy to be here, and thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
And thank you so much for getting up at what is, I know, an ungodly hour there. So thank you so much for doing that. We're also joined by Rhea Moss. She's the Director of Data Insights and Customer Intelligence at iCIMS. In her current role, she oversees iCIMS Insights program, which aggregates and anonymizes the billions of data points iCIMS software processes per year and transforms them into actionable highlights that can be used to help drive business and hiring strategies. Prior to coming to iCIMS, Rhea was head of products at Prescriptive Data and served as product and program managers at MongoDB and Thomson Reuters. Rhea holds a BS in General Engineering, Applied Mathematics and Statistics from Johns Hopkins. It's great to have her back. Rhea, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Not quite as early where you are, thank goodness. You're West Coast.
Still early. I have my caffeine
Still early.
on hand.
it's certainly earlier than what it is in London, which is it's a balmy afternoon here already. So those are our two guests, our experts. They're going to take you through the next hour. We're going to start with a poll, as we often do. So you can get involved with this by clicking on the vote button that you can see underneath the slide deck image on your screen. I'm just going to launch this now. How is your organization trying to navigate the current talent shortage? Are they A, hiring internationally in remote positions? Are they B, looking at internal mobility and upskilling existing employees? C, enhancing your career sites and recruitment tech capabilities? Are you D, improving the candidate experience as a whole? Or are you E, engaging with more diverse talent pools? I'm guessing that there'll be people listening who have also done more than one of those options, but try and pick the one that you've maybe focused on or you feel you've done the most of. It's really interesting for Kimberly and Rhea to see the results and where you guys are with your organization. So please do get stuck into that. We'll leave that open for a few minutes. And let's get started then, and we're going to talk a little bit first about the state of the talent market at the moment. We hear a lot at the moment about how difficult that market is right now, how sort of topsy-turvy it's been over the last couple of years. Rhea, I'm going to start with you first. Just how do you see it at the moment? What's going on?
Yeah, thank you. I love to start by saying, why are we all here and why are we even having this conversation? And I think as much as everybody is so excited to kick off a webinar with a 3-line chart, I think it's very important. You know, I'm the data person and I love the data, but I think the data really sets the stage for the story and why things feel really hard right now. And so what this is, excuse me, there's also allergy season in New Jersey. What this is looking at is the talent market in general. And when we think of the market as a whole and why it's hard to hire or easy to hire at certain times, it's a little bit of a supply and demand situation. And so at iCIMS, we have the interesting ability to look at what are companies doing. So are they opening jobs? So that teal line is saying, what is that intention that the company is putting out there in the world? How many positions do they have open that they're looking to hire for? Mm-hmm. Now that yellow line then is job applications. So that's the other side of the coin, which is what are people doing? And what we know through all of COVID, along with the Great Resignation and the labor shortages that we're seeing across the world right now, is that there's a disconnect between those two lines. So if you look at that yellow line, where it started to dip while we saw openings significantly increase, that's really when we started to tell that story last year of the labor shortage around the world. And what we really see is it's kind of gone back and forth. And in general, they move in lockstep. But there have been certain times where we'll see activity pick up in one and not the other. A little bit of a quick indicator of why it's so hard is that these two lines are still very far apart. So the further apart that openings and applicants number goes, the harder it feels for recruiting teams to find the talent that they're looking for and to fill the positions they're looking for. The good news through all of this, which I'm sure most of you know, is that purple line, which is hires, has actually pretty much stayed with openings, if not above it even at times. So what it's saying is kudos to everybody on this call that's in talent acquisition is the creativity is working. We're figuring it out. We are hiring people, but it's just not hiring in the same way with the same talent pools that we had. You know, I say pre-pandemic, but honestly, this chart only goes back to January of 2021. So even in the thick of the pandemic. Right. So it is really important to kind of call that out. I will kind of give a little bit of a heads up and a spoiler alert. We put this out every single month because it seems like right now you can't even have month-old, let alone quarter or year-old data. We will be putting out the June version of this slide coming actually this afternoon here in the US. And, you know, I can give you a little bit of a teaser of what we see. I know the media right now is talking all about, you know, hiring freezes. We're talking about a lot about layoffs. We're talking about a more active talent pool. And the truth of the matter is that's not showing up in the data yet. We're not seeing that happening. We're actually seeing openings continue to go up. We saw hires continue to go up and applicants are a little bit stagnant. So if you're sitting there going, oh, I'm reading all over LinkedIn that everybody is looking for work right now, what we're hearing is those are the loudest voices, but that's not the majority voice right now.
That's really interesting. And it's important to point out as well that the data you're using here is your global data. iCIMS obviously works across the world, as opposed to just looking at maybe the US or the UK. So this is a global data set that you're looking at. In terms of that state of the talent market, is this unique, Rhea? Is this have you seen this before? Is this cyclical, or is this something that's unique since the pandemic?
So I'll answer your first question and I'll answer your second question. So iCIMS does have a global data set that we look at. We do look at a subset of this data for some of these metrics. So some of them may be a little bit more US focused. Most of our clients are hiring internationally. I'm looking at the poll answers. Obviously, that is a solution that, you know, every company's looking at right now. So there is a heavily focus on the US, but what we're seeing is that does translate very much into the same trends we're seeing in those international customers. So kind of yes to both as your answer. Is this like anything we've seen before? You know, I don't have a crystal ball in the past, to be candid with you. What I will say is what it feels like right now is that historically, when you thought of a labor market, it was very much based on kind of economic trends. I always then pause and say, I am not an economist. Disclaimer. I'm just a person who's hired people and gotten jobs and loves to look at the numbers. What I feel is there's an emotional aspect to this that wasn't a part of things as much in the past. And when you add things like labor shortages and recessions and all of those really fun words to talk about during your first cup of coffee in the morning, we didn't historically think of that, though, as like how people felt about working. There's a huge emotional aspect that's been introduced that I don't know a time in history, not a historian either, but I don't know a time in history where there was this thought of like, do I take this job? And not just because of a dollar amount or potential, but what's right for my family, and that things like school closures. And we do know that certain generations are being affected in ways that we never talked about them when we discussed the labor market historically. So can't say, you know, it's the hardest it's ever been, or it's not the hardest it's ever been, but I can say there are factors that have been introduced that just make everything even more challenging.
That's fascinating. That those added factors that we're looking at now are definitely playing a huge part. Let's just have a quick look at our poll results. How is your organization trying to navigate the current talent shortage? 8% are talking about hiring internationally more in remote positions. 25%, 1 in 4 are talking about looking at internal mobility and upskilling existing employees, putting that money into learning and development within their organization. 22% are talking about enhancing your career sites and recruitment tech capabilities. 30%, which is our most popular answer, improving the candidate experience as a whole. They're looking at that whole candidate journey. And 13%, 1-3, talking about engaging with more diverse talent pools. Quite a mix across the board there, Rhea, just come to you first. A quarter looking at that internal piece, that upskilling existing employees. Nearly a third talking about improving the candidate experience overall, with sort of the rest of the audience sort of spread across the other options relatively evenly. Hiring internationally, maybe slightly less. Is that what you'd expect to see? Are people looking at a number of levers here to try and sort of get their heads around the talent market that they're working in at the moment?
Yeah, I think candidly, if you had an option that said everything in the kitchen sink, D, all of the above, I think that's really what folks are trying. I'm not surprised to see it kind of peanut buttered across so many of them, because the truth of the matter is, while everyone may have one or two that may be working more, or they're putting a little more emphasis on it, the answer right now is we have to be doing everything. Because even, I like to say iCIMS are the customers who have the best tools and the best technology. They already have everything they could have to make this easier. And we just saw how hard it is for them. So if I was able to pull this for folks who are trying to do this tracking in a spreadsheet, I can't even fathom how difficult it would be. So not overly surprised to see it not one or the other. I think really what we're seeing is that folks are just trying anything and everything they can. KT, would you agree with that on your side?
I would. I was also going to just add, like, I think the definitions have changed. Like, I'm not surprised by those answers, at least not based on recent conversations. Internal mobility is such a hot topic, and that aligns with retention and what we're trying to see with just growing career development. And I've got lots to say on that. But just going back to candidate experience, been in this industry for about 10 years, and candidate experience was the hot topic when I entered this industry. I don't think that's going anywhere, but I think that's for a multitude of reasons, and primarily because our own technology that we interface with on a daily basis is evolving. And so candidate experience continues to be at the forefront simply because of the way that we engage with now text, websites, email, social media, things like that. Like, that continues to evolve, and so we have to continue to evolve in order to stay in front of talent. And then I think that the overarching life cycle has expanded as well. So when we talk about candidate experience, it used to be right when you just apply, and now the definition is so much broader. And that to me it really extends just what we know of the candidate experience, and goes into so many other buckets, like what does it mean to onboard? What does it mean to actually start at the company? That's all part of this new candidate life cycle.
Yeah, I think there's a fascinating piece here. And again, I'm putting my math hat on early, that if we take candidate experience and internal mobility and we combine them, we're now at over the majority. And one thing I think we're seeing as a major trend is that we can no longer think of internal candidates not as a part of the candidate experience, and that whether the person already works for your business or whether they're new to your organization from an application perspective, that how we treat them through this process, we know that candidates have more options than ever right now. And what we're seeing is that we have to treat both the internal and the external candidates in the same way. And I love the word evolution that you keep saying, KT, because I would almost say it's not even improving the candidate experience, it's evolving to this new way of hiring and recruiting. Because I love to use the example of, remember when a candidate experience was you schedule a time with them and then they walk through the doors and there's a big impressive lobby and maybe some overly expensive floral arrangement. You are impressing them by the fact that your building was 29 stories tall, not the fact that people are real and working here has real culture and genuine perks. And I'm not talking free coffee in the morning. That's not a perk anymore. And I think that those two together combining tell a real story right now, that it's about just what is your whole experience of the recruitment process internally and externally.
Well, thank you very much to everyone that took part in that poll. It was really, really interesting. We're going to launch another one later on in about 20 minutes time, and we'll get your feedback again on what we're talking about. Rhea, just quickly before we move off this slide, number of applicants per part-time job opening is on the rise, but full-time has been, as you said there, bearing the brunt. Just talk us through what we can see on the screen here.
Yeah, I mean, I love when I get on with a group of our customers, we'll do these dialogues together and I hear, well, this person doesn't have that problem because they hire for part-time and people are still applying for part-time jobs, or this person is applying for this industry. It's not as hard right now as others. And candidly, what we're seeing across the board is the talent shortage is everywhere. Some people have it a little better than others, but the truth is We're seeing a little bit of a comeback in part-time work, but it's still significantly lower in the applicants per opening for those positions. You know, the good news I would say on this slide is that applicants per opening number, that is really what we think of as what you're going to get when you open a position. What do you expect as a talent to come in? It's flatlined. So while that's not fantastic, it is to say we're not necessarily seeing it get significantly harder.
It's not getting worse.
It's not getting worse.
That's good news. That's glass
It is, because I think, you know, candidly, when we talk to a lot of TA organizations, they're saying like, we feel like we've hit rock bottom. It can't get any harder. How are we going to fill these roles? So we are seeing that start to flatline. We're seeing part-time come back a little bit. That's a positive sign of what we're seeing, because that got pretty low at some points in the last year or so. But we're continuing to just see a significant decline in just the expectation. And I always like to say, send this to your hiring managers. And when they say things like, oh, these candidates are good, but let's see what else comes in, gone are those days. This is the days to take the talent you have and find the right one out of the bunch, because it only takes one.
And there's that word again that Kimberly was using earlier, that evolution. You know, talent acquisition has evolved. Sorry, how has it evolved, Rhea?
Yeah, and I know KT feels strongly about this, but as we look at that slide I just showed, and I'll kind of tee KT up here.
Yeah.
What we're seeing right now is gone are the days that you can just open a position and wait for the folks to come into you. But if that's shocking to anyone, I'm sorry to do that to you on a lovely Thursday, I hear in the UK, but that strategy is not going to work right now. So KT, you want to talk a little about what we're seeing that is working?
Well, and I think it aligns too with even the technology that exists out there, right? Like the technology even was built initially to help you identify, help you screen, help you hire. And that's what the technology was doing. But as we started to understand the individuals, and especially at iCIMS, as we developed these personas, we then flipped it and said, well, let's put the personas right front and center. And that's what you're seeing in the image on the right, which is, you know, we're now looking at not just the candidate or the applicant, we're looking at the hiring manager, the sourcer, the recruiter, and we're asking ourselves, what is it that they need in order to attract, engage, hire, and advance? What is it that the applicant needs in order to get through these various stages? And so initially the technology was built to troubleshoot or solve for, you know, very specific individuals who were hiring. And now as we've grown and seen this evolution of not only people and users within the space, now we're actually answering to that and letting the technology drive a lot of how we shape and respond to the needs of each customer's business. And I think that's what, you know, to me, the real evolution is and will continue to be, right? Like this isn't the end of it. I think, you know, like I said, candidate experience has been a hot topic. That's not going anywhere. And it's not going anywhere for a multitude of reasons, but also, you know, I think about how we interact with like Uber, how we interact with Lyft, how we interact with our Amazon packages, and we're getting real-time, up-to-date notifications, texts. The package is on its way. It will be there in 2 hours, whatnot. Like that is essentially what we're trying to deliver in this space as well. You are up, you're coming in an hour. We're going to see you. We're going, you know, your desk is ready, your whatever it might be. Those real-time updates will become demands from our candidates, applicants, and hires. And we have to find ways to deliver that, especially in this world where a lot of talent is remote. And so or they're in the field. And so how do you respond to those hourly workers and whatnot as well, and give them real-time updates?
And I think the other thing to consider when you look at this is just how much over the last year or so, the linearity of a candidate's journey has changed as well. So I hear a lot of our customers talk about things like, I've never seen so many candidates get all the way through to an offer and decline. We know for a fact offer acceptance rates are significantly down. We know that application completion rates, so someone gets to your career site, it's no longer got them. We know those rates have declined. And then we're even hearing conversations, especially in certain sectors right now, where they're accepting offers and then they don't start. And so I think if you think about sort of this evolution of always recruiting and having this life cycle, how can companies prepare for things like those changes of, you get all the way to, if we look at the left-hand side of that slide, you get all the way to hire and you're like, done.
Changed it, Rhea.
It's all good. You say, okay, we hired them, we're done. Well, you need to continue to be nurturing that talent pool because you don't know when that hire is going to not start. And I think it's true on both sides. I was about to say of the coin, and it was a bad choice of word, but the other side is happening as well. We have organizations who are getting all the way through to offers. And unfortunately, right now in the world we're in, they're rescinding them. So I think candidates are always looking. Gone is the day of you have your active candidates and your passive candidates. I think even happy employees are looking at what's out there because of everything going on in the media. And I think you have both companies have to always be recruiting and remembering that every interaction with your brand, you just said, like, right, Lyft, Uber, Amazon's. If I would decide if I wanted to work there, in my Lyft ride may determine whether I want to apply for a company like that. And so I think in this kind of new world of work, every interaction a company has with a person is a potential candidate. And they have to think about that. Gone is the EVP just being when you hit a career site. I think it really starts so much more broadly today. And that companies have to be aware of that and kind of have a strategy for it.
Yeah.
For those not aware, Rhea referenced there a story that did make some noise in Europe and in the UK, but was obviously huge in the States, which was Coinbase, wasn't it, who was rescinded a huge amount of offers after sort of some negative sort of reporting and forecasting for where they were going, and left a lot of candidates high and dry, having perhaps already left previous roles to take up new roles where then offers were rescinded. The reason why I flicked on was because you were going very nicely into talking about how we attract and engage top talent, Rhea. I know we talked about a number of ideas in the week when we were talking about this topic. Just take us through some of the sort of critical aspects you feel are relevant now in terms of attracting and engaging. You talked a bit about career sites and websites and that interface with potential candidates. I know that's something you wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually start on the bottom of this slide. We did a study on Gen Z candidates entering the market. And some interesting pieces. I know a lot of folks feel a little bit disconnected, candidly, from that generation because they're a generation that doesn't seem kind of overly understood, and they're very different than historical generations. And one of the things I thought was kind of fascinating is that 70% of graduates are looking at employer sites when prepping for interviews. But what I thought was really fascinating, this kind of goes back to that notion of your EVP or what you're putting out as your attraction mechanism to work at your company is no longer just what you determine is on your career site. More than half of them admit to stalking. I love that word. It's kind of creepy and fun. I don't think Googling is stalking, but maybe that's just me as a millennial.
Depends what
looking
you're
at their manager. Yeah, looking at their manager, looking at their teams, going on social media. And I'm not talking like I'll use myself as an example because I know I'm allowed to. I'm not saying a candidate that wants to work for a role for me is going and looking at iCIMS LinkedIn or iCIMS Instagram. We know that what they're doing is they're actually going and they're looking at my LinkedIn and the managers on my team LinkedIn, and they're taking a list of people on that interview list. And, unfortunately, some people have unique names. Don't know anyone like that. It's real easy to go online. There's like two of us Rhea Mosses in the world.
Yeah, I'm called James.
You
can't find me.
Yeah, Kimberly's like, got this one in the bag.
Yeah.
But I think, we know that for a fact that it's so much more broad. They're going on Glassdoor. They're reading what genuinely people have to say. And while those aren't things that you can control in a talent acquisition department, let's just be clear. I don't expect you to be policing every hiring manager's Instagram, but I think it is important to communicate that message out to the leaders, to the teams, that you are a representative of your company. And while your Facebook is your Facebook, think about what a candidate, have you ever looked at your own personal Facebook, put it in private mode and gone, what would a candidate see if they went on Facebook and looked at me as a hiring manager? And I think that what we do know is that, as I was saying, application completion rates are down. We can't afford to lose candidates at any kind of phase. And one of the phases we're seeing is their own research phase.
Kimberly, just your take on that as well, that employee, the employer brand, and how the depth of that and the complexity of that is more than it ever has been.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the engagement piece and what we know individuals are doing. And, some of the data that also came out in this report showed that, individuals are spending longer on your career site, especially in with Gen Z talent, things that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate, especially when I think all the data before suggested, oh, you want people to not stay on your career site. You want them to get straight to the application and you want them to start the apply process. And then they'll come back and they'll do a little bit more research. And now it's like, no. Our data is telling us they're spending a good amount of time on your career site. They're spending a good amount of time doing this research. And then this survey results came back and it was like, yeah, they're actually stalking you. And they're doing their homework. They're also applying for more jobs. So, it's another interesting thing to think about is that just candidates or applicants in general are going a little bit more above and beyond and applying for maybe 2 or 3 times more jobs than they were just a couple of years ago. And part of that is for security. That's also part of the reason that we're seeing this offer to accept rate dip so low when we look at the data across the board. They're getting multiple offers. And so they're having to make these decisions. And when you put it in that context of knowing the individual is applying for multiple jobs, they're, engaging and doing all this kind of background research, they're now in the driver's seat and they have the decision to make, and they're making it in real time. Who's responding to them the fastest? Who's showing that they're, the most well-deserving of this role and giving them that extra care and that extra attention. The same is true in even hourly roles, right? Like you want that immediacy. You're willing to leave for maybe a couple dollars more, but you're looking for a quick, I need an answer. I want to start my job. I'm looking for a job today. I want to start tomorrow. That type of thing. The ones who are winning in this space are the ones who are responding that much faster. They're willing and able to leverage technology to get ahead and to get in front of all their competitors to make those quick offers. And different technology can help us do that, whether it's text messaging, video-based content. Those are the ones that probably stand out the most, but then even social media as well. And we've found across the board that video content continues to outperform any other content that we put on a customer's career site and even on social media. And what I mean by that is we're talking about authentic, real-time, like one-on-one type question and answer videos. And we have our own, solution that we offer called Video Studio. But I had the privilege and the honor to be one of the founding members of this company. And I can just tell you, like, Video Studio and everything you can do with it is all about providing that transparency and authenticity about who your brand is, what it's really like working there. And it was an answer to what we were hearing in the market and what we were seeing. There was all this influencer marketing that was, spiking probably a few years back, maybe 4 years back. And we asked ourselves the question, how do we tell the same type of story, but about an employer's brand? How do we do that about the individual employees' roles? And by asking individuals questions and answers and being able to integrate that across the board on their website, on social media, things like that, it enabled us to give the answers that people were looking for, that job seekers wanted to have, and to put it right in front of them. And so again, video is one way of doing it, but there's so many others as well. To really track and measure what's being successful. But video has been really successful in the last few years.
And Kimberly, just quickly, I wanted to ask you as well, because I think when people, particularly smaller firms, so not corporate, maybe SME firms, think about video, they think of sort of Warner Brothers produced, sort of, Spielberg-esque videos that need to be sort of actually what the tool that you're using and a lot of the video content out there that's the most effective doesn't have to be particularly expensively produced, does it?
It doesn't. And it's actually interesting because we've done a million studies around this, like with all of our customers, I would say have probably done this. There's a place for highly produced content. I don't think that's going away. I love the Spielberg-esque type content that gets put out. The challenge was, and what we were seeing when we were working with customers was that, you have a small budget and maybe you put, especially if we're talking about the smaller companies, they're putting $5,000 towards just this highly produced video. But then it didn't have a lifespan. It would be used for that one major event. It would be used for, putting on the homepage. And then it felt like it got stale relatively quickly, right? It was like, oh, well, the video's been on our website homepage for 3 months and it's not changed. And it's old. And what we found was it wasn't nearly as engaging as when we put the face of an employee up there who was authentically talking about what they were doing. And that was easy to do. Anybody can record a video on their phone, and the quality on your phone is really good these days. And so we were, starting to encourage our customers, just record it on your phone and see. And obviously we have an app and we can monitor and scale all of it. But there was ways that we were finding to quickly get, especially with, smaller to mid-sized companies, quickly at least collect that content and leverage it. And we were finding that it was easy to ask employees for it because they were so used to doing it, which is another one of the hurdles. I think people are always going, I don't know if our employees are going to want to do it. Trust me, your employees will do it. Like, I've worked with every vertical and every company imaginable. And all the ones who are like, I don't know if they'll ever do it. And they do it. And it's because that's what they do in their free time already. They're already on camera. They're already used to doing some type of storytelling, or at least capturing content around them. It's not meant for everybody. That's okay. We're not asking everybody to record content and put it on your website or on social media. And so when you start to think about that aspect of it, or all the hundreds of employees you might have, generally you're like, well, we don't need all of them to record content. We just need to tell the stories of the people that we're trying to hire, that we know that are, our top roles that people are going after, things like that, or to tell the story of our actual brand and get that out there.
And if I could, the other interesting thing I found, because I was, believe it or not, actually one of those people who was like, I am not recording my face. I am not a Gen Z. I never got Snapchat, let alone TikTok. I'm not cool by any stretch of the word. It was interesting because the more I saw people put not polished videos out, the more I was like, well, I could do that. I had in my head when they would say, hey, can you go record a video for Insights this month? Just give them a 1-minute update on what you found. I'm like, I probably took 75 takes. I'm not kidding you. And I hated all of them. And I refused to listen to my own voice on them after. And I thought I looked like I had 7 chins, right? Let's just all put it out there what we thought we saw. And then now, fast forward a year and a half, and I recorded yesterday the Insights video that will be going live on our LinkedIn today when we talk about how fast you can pull these things off. I think it was a 3-part. I did 3 takes, and I think one of them I recorded twice. Because all of a sudden, when it doesn't have to be perfect, it's, oh, this is easy. Whatever. I see this other person who's wearing a t-shirt in their, home office. I didn't have a beautiful background. There's a white wall. Someone joked I looked like a hostage on my first one. That was fine. The point came across, right? And as we talk about company culture, but that is the culture of our company. I'm usually sitting at home. There might be a dog barking, and I fumble my words sometimes. That's what it's like to work at iCIMS, and it's okay. I actually wanted to add to that topic too. I had the opportunity to sit down with the iCIMS interns yesterday. They always think that I'm going to tell them some great things, but I really just pepper them with 100 questions because I'm very removed from being a Gen Z myself. And I asked this question. I said, how do y'all feel about like a beautifully perfect Hollywood production versus someone like me fumbling my words in my bedroom? And they said, you know why we like yours better? And I said, no, but thank you for saying that. You don't have to lie to me. They said, you have nothing to gain from that testimonial. They said, when I look at this beautiful Hollywood production, the first word that comes to mind is paid actor. And it's funny because I'd never thought that word. I'm always like, I'm sure, of course they're an employee. But it kind of goes back in my mind to that conversation we were having, which feels like a lifetime ago, 3 years ago, about stock images. Y'all remember those conversations? Like, please take your stock images off your career site. Stock images are the new version of a Hollywood film, right? They were like, we'd rather just see a real picture of people real people. That's what the culture looks like. And the other thing that I thought was just fascinating that I have to add to this group, because I was asking them in general about, how did you learn how to do things like interviewing via Zoom? Your parents never did them. How did you know what to wear on Zoom? How did you know where to put your camera? How did you know how to take an interview? And do you know what a lot of them said? They said, I went on your company site and I looked in the videos at what people were wearing and what they were in front of. And it was like, I don't know how I never thought of this before, but you're not just telling them what the culture is like as far as your words. You're showing them. You're saying, look, hey, like, it's raining in New Jersey. Like Rhea.
Oh, we're just having a problem with
wearing a sweater, right? But it's interesting that they learn in that way.
Yeah.
And that's really how we're showing true culture, not through the giant flowers in the entryway.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. That's absolutely true. And it's so fascinating. And a really interesting insight from your interns into how Gen Z view this particular topic. Just we're over halfway through here on Inside HR with Rhea and Kimberly. We're talking about attracting and retaining top talent. We're going to start, Rhea, now just by looking at the hire stage, and we'll work our way through the sort of employee life cycle here. You talked earlier a little bit about simplifying hiring processes, making it easier for hiring managers. Just talk us through how you go about doing that with your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think candidly, communicate. What we're seeing so often is that there are so many times that we can't make the hiring process faster. We can't simplify it. There's steps we as businesses need to go through to get to that hire. But we have to communicate it. Right now, we know that candidates have more options than ever, and some companies are moving quickly. What we're seeing is just being real, being authentic, letting them know, look, here are going to be the steps. To Kimberly's point, right? Give them the Amazon tracking. Maybe it won't come in 2 hours, but here's when you can expect it. Here's what the steps will be, and we'll keep you up to date all along the way. I think not only communicate, but communicate in the method they want to be communicated in. I'll tell you right now, you send an email to my Gmail, I might find it next year. I'm one of those people. You text my mom, she may never read it, right? So you have to think about asking people how they want to be communicated with, the cadence they want to be communicated with. I love things like, I was talking to a recruiter and they said, we've got a lot of candidates just like you, Rhea. We text them to let them know there's an email they need to go read. Perfect. I'd go read it, right? So we have to think, how can we meet, we can't always make our process fit them, but how do we shape our communication and our style to meet them and bring them into our process? So I think that's really huge. I think personalization right now is big. I know we're going back again to that video topic, but we're seeing some huge successes where they don't just send an offer. They send an offer that has a video, the hiring manager going, hey there, we're so excited to make you an offer. We hope you come on board. Now there's a human face to that offer. Incredibly successful that we're seeing there. And then onboarding, right? Gone are the days that when they accept the offer, you've got them locked in the bag. We know we have to continue to recruit and attract them all the way through, starting on day one and their onboarding process. Obviously, we have to be as quick as we can. So things like automating tasks.
Well, I was about to ask you, those manual processes, those things that can make that hiring process speedier, more efficient.
Absolutely.
That's a big part of your strategy as well, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. I think, what we know right now is time to fill is of the essence. Candidates are seeing multiple offers. So if your process takes a day or two longer, that candidate may have another offer. And unfortunately, that offer may have you have to tell us yes or no before they can even get the offer from you. So while I think speed is important, it is very diligent to still follow your process. Make sure they're the right fit for you. You're the right fit for them. Because the other thing we know right now with the Great Resignation is now we've kind of got this second wave of turnover of that group that jumped to something that was brighter and shinier and the grass was greener. We do still have to make sure it's the right candidate and the right fit and communicate that. This is not just for us. It's for you as well. But then really where we can speed up steps, gone are the day that interview scheduling needs to be find all interviewers and a 1 4-hour block. They happen to be back to back. In this world of Zoom, one interview can be Tuesday morning and one can be Tuesday afternoon and the next can be Wednesday at lunch. I think that what we have to just look at is every step of the process and how even in the smallest iterations, we can speed that up.
And I know what the answer to this question is because I know I'm asking the head of data insights, but I was just going to say that the importance of the reporting and the analysis of that, having a software and a process that where you've got some solid reporting that you can take data insights from is really crucial as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. I would say reporting every single step of the funnel. Time to fill is critical as we think of it as a speed, but time to every single checkpoint is just as important. And then the last piece is getting benchmark data. Because if you have a competitor who's getting them into interview 2 within 4 days in application, and you're taking till day 14 to get them to interview 2, that competitor is probably going to get that candidate 3 out of 5 times.
Kimberly, I know I spoke to Rhea during the week and we talked a bit about the Great Resignation and discussed whether that's something that perhaps, particularly in the media in the States where you guys are, that there's a feeling that perhaps that might have become a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. What are your thoughts? I'm going to come to you, Rhea, because I know you have plenty of thoughts on it as well. But before then, Kimberly, what are your thoughts on that? In terms of the way that term has grown, the awareness of that term, and the trend that the term refers to, and whether that's now sort of almost snowballed into something that is sort of running on its own steam almost now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was coined in the right way, but I think that it has just blown up in so many other ways, and it is something that we continue to keep a close eye on, but I have, my own opinions on where it's headed and what that means in terms for the future as well. And I think if anything, and, it makes sense that we've kind of moved on to the, retention and an advancement slide, but, the Great Resignation in a lot of ways was a bubble that was about to pop and needed to pop. And so I think in that sense, it was, happening and it was already bubbling and about to happen. But now there's this focus and again, however it was worded, but now there's this focus really on how do you retain that talent? And that's what's, for me, what I've continue to kind of monitor and evolve with Rhea and the data is, well, what are individuals actually looking for? What is it that they're wanting out of this? And is it just about timing? Is it that, okay, it's 2022, let's go. This needed to happen years ago. And so now there's this kind of bubble that's burst that is like, okay, it's time to actually align with skills development, with these other kind of gigs and opportunities that talent actually has been wanting for the last several years and just hadn't boiled or bubbled to the surface yet. And so anyways, that's my take on it.
We have a thing in the UK where we talk about our energy providers or our mobile phone companies who only offer great deals to the people they're trying to attract in and not the companies they have already inside. Was there a danger that was happening in terms of employees as well, that all the sort of, there was a lot of thought going into attraction, but actually not a huge amount going into the people that were already there? Is that something that we think is possibly part of this?
Absolutely. And what we know is that candidates look at jobs inside their company before they look at jobs in other companies. And studies have shown over and over again that if a candidate applies for a job in their company and they don't get it and something positive doesn't come out of that, that you can set the egg timer. They will be leaving the business. And, you think about it, what you've done is you've taken a candidate and you've gotten them who is happy in your business. You've gotten them to update their resume. You've got them to get all their interview questions and answers put together. You got them prepped for this whole process. And if it doesn't work out in their business, they're like, well, I'm 75% of the way there. Why not look into this elsewhere?
What I think is really interesting on that is that what we also know from the data is that there's no real indicator that they're doing that. So we have no way to track and measure that this individual has gone and looked at the internal career site to actually say they're searching, they're looking for their next thing. And I'm like shocked that the industry doesn't have anything that like allows you to see that they're looking and there's nothing there, where I think it's, you want to tell yourself, oh, that employee is going to go to their hiring manager or to somebody else and they're going to tell them that they want this, but they're not They're actually going and they're looking on their own and they're going, there's nothing else here for me. They're making these own decisions. Maybe then they start to bubble it up, but by that point, they've already made the decision that there's nothing for them and they need to leave and start looking elsewhere. And at that point, you're setting the timer because you've got to figure out something for them, or they're already, talking to somebody else. And I think that's also just very true with today's market right now. We just know that, the need for talent is just, it's sky high. And so they're getting a lot of different pings along the way as well. But this is where technology comes in and can really help solve for some of this. This is where we can say, what are the skills that you have? What are the roles that you're looking for? What are the things that you want to do in your career? How can we help develop those skills? But the more and more that I, Kimberly Taylor, KT, can tell you, these are the skills I have, these are the things I want to do, the better off the company is at then identifying those individuals who, one, are like at the very top of the chart saying, I want to do something else, and or who have the skills who maybe you wouldn't have thought of, that sit in data insights, but actually are more interested in driving customer strategy.
Kimberly, I wanted to talk a little bit to you about recruitment marketing automation that connects everything that iCIMS does with its clients. Just talk us through what we're looking at on the screen right now.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll go quick on this one, but it's obviously an important one as well. So we actually just happened to acquire Candidate ID, and it's all about marketing automation. So if you think about the way in which we talk about, and I think there's a lot of misnomers too, but when we talk about automation and what that looks like, I'm not talking about changing stages and moving, faster down the funnel. What I'm talking about is how do you deliver an experience to your actual candidates and applicants where you can measure intent, look at delivering targeted based content, and kind of bring together all of your different systems. Think of your CRM, your career site, your ATS, all these different systems, texts that you use, and have one kind of consistent message to the end user based on their engagement, meaning that I received a text, I clicked on the link, if this, then that. And it's all housed within this marketing automation tool that we have called Candidate ID. If you see me lighting up, it's because I'm so excited about it. And it essentially enriches. It enriches the profile of the candidate, and it allows you to see what are they most interested in, what are they doing with our brand, and how are they engaging with our brand, and essentially it draws them to the surface. So you
can't just wait until we can do that with internal employees. To the point you just said, there's no way to measure what employees are actively looking for their next move in your business. Wait till we can do that, and we can.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, Rhea, it's about communicate. That's the first bullet we've got here on creating that winning talent attraction plan, Kimberly. Communication is the centerpiece of this, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And you have to find ways to keep up with the talent that's on the go. And that's where marketing automation really comes back into it. It's hard to communicate one-on-one. It's hard to communicate with just one channel. Marketing automation brings that all to life by saying it doesn't matter which channel that individual engages with. We have access to deliver the right message at the right time based on what they're clicking on and determine their intent, and then bring that back to your recruiters. So again, if I can move on to the next bullet, adapt the workforce to business needs, like that second one that was on there, like that's where we're doing that. Or even making it easier by leveraging technology. I'll just call them all out. Like these are the things that we're looking at automation, and we're saying, how do you take the pool of candidates who even live in your ATS, and how do you know which ones to talk to first? Marketing automation brings that to the surface. It basically says, of the 50,000 people, of the 400,000 people that are living within your applicant tracking system that you've already engaged with at one point, or they applied to a role, these are the ones who you want to talk to first. And marketing automation brings those individuals to the surface and says, talk to these individuals first, and then here's how you're going to engage with them. And it's all with pipelines and whatnot. And these are all the talent acquisition capabilities that are needed to really keep up with this evolved, talent that we're seeing that's now coming into the market.
And Rhea, just to reinforce, because I think maybe a lot of people will have tuned into our webinar today talking about talent attraction was what we titled it as, but that internal mobility piece is so important, isn't it?
Well, I think we have to think internally when we think talent attraction, because attracting someone to the business is just as important as attracting them to the next role. And when we talk about the talent pools that are active right now, let's be honest, they're the younger talent pools. When you've got the older, I hate this term, but it's been coined and now I'm using it, the geriatric millennials, which I fall into, and the baby boomers, that's a group that we know right now, they're leaving. They're staying in their business. They're leaving the workforce at higher rates. We've got this younger generation who's really out there looking. So if you can take talent that you have and move them up in your organization or sideways in your organization and find easier to fill seats, why wouldn't we?
Just looking at those poll results very quickly, remember we asked how are you looking to improve your talent acquisition process in the near future. 4% talking about outsourcing, 12% talking about investing in software, 41% talking about improving internal processes, which is just
I think we made our point.
Yeah, I think you got through there, Rhea. 19% talking about upskilling and training internal recruiting teams, and 21% talking about creating more internal mobility opportunities, which is very much in line with the conversation that we've just had. Before we get to questions, I'm traditionally always late for questions anyway, so don't worry, everyone. That's my unblemished record of never getting there on time. But we just wanted to talk about, Rhea, I know a quick case study that you wanted to reference, which is a UK construction firm, isn't it, Ryden? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the UK construction firm Ryden, they're using CRM right now to hire 80% of their employees directly, which is about 20% better than the industry average. Recruiting agencies are expensive. It's a huge turnaround. They used to rely on 90% of hires coming from them. So I know there's a question there about costs and ROI, and if we can put dollar amounts on these things, we're seeing right now that Ryden is spending 85% less money filling roles than they were before using our software. So an interesting case study. Happy to provide more information for anybody interested, but wanting to call out that the right technologies, while you may spend money to get a technology, there can be huge savings in the long run.
Brilliant. Kimberly and Rhea, that was fascinating. Thank you so much for that. We've got about 6 minutes left, and I'd like to turn that over to our audience for questions. We've got some fabulous ones coming in here. Firstly, let's go. I'll give this to Kimberly first. What is your top tip or process that you automate in the recruitment process? What's the area where you've seen that automation has made the biggest impact in that recruitment process?
I think in your talent pools and your pipelines, especially right now, as we've been talking about retention and mobility, when you think about talent pools and pipeline, I'm talking about external talent pools and internal talent pools. So this just is a game changer. If you can just start within your CRM or with some marketing automation tool like a candidate ID, where you can set it, I'm not going to say forget it, but you can set it up and build the pipeline that you want to communicate in that fashion. Essentially, what you're going to see is an immediate return on who's the most engaged with you and know exactly who to go after the next time there's this big hiring need or hiring push. And it just delivers that right back to you and removes a lot of the friction of people having to go in and set up all these different text campaigns, email campaigns, whatnot. For your end people, and it allows your employees to be more strategic. Now they don't have to be creating email templates. No.
So Katie, I like to say set it and let it. We don't forget it. We just let it do its thing. And I will say, I do think candidly, I look at economic data a lot, and we're on the precipice of a lot of companies. I mean, you can't hide from it, that are going on hiring freezes. That is not the time to stop recruiting. If we learned anything from 2020 and the labor shortage that came after it, it's that so many people pulled back and froze. That's a time to build pools. It's a time to go out and still continue to recruit and to create that experience. Now, you're not pushing a job for them to apply to, but if you're starting to get them in your pipeline, into your communication of, this is how great it is to work at iCIMS. When the next role is open, you have them engaged and active, and you know which, to the point of candidate, you know which candidates are the most engaged and interested. And then to be able, because what we see the last couple of years is there's pendulum swings. So we go from hiring freezes to please go hire 75 people yesterday. And, you know, I hope that's what the recovery from this situation looks like economically. But all we know right now is it doesn't feel any more like set cruise control on hiring. It's slam the brakes, floor the gas, slam the brakes, floor the gas. And if you're not continuing to build those pipes, even while the car is stopped, you won't have the gas to floor when time comes to hire like crazy again.
And anyone thinking that Rhea is saying that in hindsight, she was on Inside HR in 2020 and said exactly.
Did I?
The same thing. I'm pretty sure. You can go back and check. Have a look at our feed on Bright Talk. You can go back and check that. But I'm pretty sure you did, Rhea. I'm pretty sure we talked about cruise control. What other have we got here? We're being deluged by candidates without the right skills or experience, which is putting a huge strain on our resources. What can we do to mitigate this? Obviously, we talked a bit about automation just now, Rhea. What other things can we do here? There's often a high volume of candidates, but without the requisite skills or experience, and that it's taking time to wade through them.
Yeah, great question. Not a lot of people right now saying they're getting too many candidates. So while this is a little bit of a problem, it's kind of a first world problem.
Yeah. Be lucky that you've got loads.
What I would say is we do see a lot of things like video interviewing being really helpful. And the reason I call that one specifically out is the fantastic thing about a video interview is that a recruiter can go in and interview someone. And then if we're saying they're not right for this position, we now have on file what that person was like. And if there's 10 more open positions that they may be a better fit, 10 more people don't need to go speak to them. And they can watch that video. So I would say that's one tip I have that I'm seeing being really useful right now is use technology for your advantage. Get that interview in a place where if you're getting too many candidates, again, stick them in the CRM and figure out where else they might fit in your organization.
Kimberly, I wanted to ask you this one. I mean, you've spoken to this already, but this question's come in. Candidate expectations have risen dramatically in the last year or so. Do you think this will be reset or level out over time, or is this the new normal? Is this where it's going to stay from now on? I think you sort of kind of spoke to that earlier, but again, is candidate expectation levels are perceived to have risen a lot over the last couple of years. Is this the new normal now? Is this where we are?
I think they have risen a lot over the last couple of years, but this definitely is the new normal. And it will continue to be is my take. I think they see that they have a lot more power and influence. And because of that, companies are now asking, what do you need as the candidate? And what do our employees need? And so I think the key thing here to me is like, don't forget about your employees who also value experience, who once were candidates, who within their first 30 days within the company are already asking themselves, what's next for me? And I think that's where a lot of times we drop the ball as employers, as we think about, all this work to get them there. And then we get them there and then they don't have the best experience on onboarding or, figuring out what their next move is in terms of how they attain skills and get to their next career level. And so that's the area I'd say you don't want to miss out on that because it's so key. That's the exact same talent who really valued the experience. And so we want to make sure you continue to deliver that for them.
Yeah, I think I don't think the expectation's unrealistic. I think if you've seen me on other webinars, I talk a lot about how interviewing is kind of like dating that eventually ends with a proposal, and the person being proposed to gets to decide to say yes or no in a marriage. And candidly, I think that the candidates have found their voice. And I don't think things like asking to be communicated with through the process or setting proper expectations or letting them get the chance to ask their own questions is unrealistic. And I think as consumers, we've gotten to a point now where we don't just buy a product, we want to read reviews, right? And so I think if you think of a candidate as a consumer, as we've gone through this digital revolution, this is just what we expect. We just expect to learn about things before we make decisions. And I don't think that's going away.
That sadly is all we have time for. Rhea and Kim, thank you so much for your expertise and your time and your analysis this morning. That is it from Inside HR for today. Thank you very much for being with us, and from everyone here, from Kim in LA and from Rhea in New Jersey. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.